I'm really happy to be back in long sleeves. Hey BookTube, it's Kim at middle of the book march. I'm also really happy to be feeling a little bit better. I still have a little throat thing going on, but I probably sound worse than I feel. It's definitely been a slow recovery, slow COVID recovery, but I will be back to work probably by Monday. I think I have to get another test, and I have to confirm with my personnel department that I'm doing all the right things to be able to come back. Yay, yeah, whatever. So, this is kind of going to be a miscellaneous video. I've got a couple of things to show you. I wanted to show you the winners of my Mookes and Gripes bucket list book tag. I had, as many of us did, put out in the video, vote in the comments as to which 2 books you would like me to read in 2022. And so many of you did that, thank you. And I wrote everything down on paper and I gave everything a hash for every vote that it got. And so I wanted to show you which 2 books won, but I also have 2 other books to discuss. The first one of the biggest winners was Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye. And I actually read this already. I read it for Shorty September because I think it's 232 pages. For me, that was, actually it's far less than 200 pages. Never mind. So I already read this. I really loved it. Was glad I finally read it. Toni Morrison's first novel, published in 1970. The other big winner was one of my nonfictions, and this is Cast by Isabel Wilkerson. This one I am going to read this year. I'm going to pick it up for Nonfiction November coming up this year. So I put this one aside and took it out of the running. Now I have 2 other books, one of which was the highest book, got the highest number of votes. And I showed you all of my Virginia Woolf books. I think I have 5 or 6. And I've never read Virginia Woolf before. And Mrs. Dalloway was the front runner, was the clear winner. Not only out of the Virginia Woolf books, but out of all of the books I showed everybody. This was number 1. So I'll be reading Mrs. Dalloway in 2022. I don't know when. It's a short book, so it'd be easy to pick up at any time. But I'm not sure when yet. I have the entire year next year. So don't put any pressure on me. And the second clear winner was Ursula K Le Guin's. And this is the Library of America edition. Super long, but it has multiple books in here. This is volume 1, and this includes Hainish Novels and Stories, Rocannon's World, Planet of Exile, City of Illusions, The Left Hand of Darkness, The Dispossessed, and Stories. So this was number 2. This is going to be something I will probably read over throughout the year because I'm not going to sit down and read this cover to cover at any time next year. But I will get to this. And this one, I'm excited about all the books, but I'm really excited about this. I've been wanting to read Le Guin for so many years, and I hear nothing except positivity about her writing. So the next thing I wanted to show you is my Victober TBR. There are 3 hosts for Victober this year: Katie at Books and Things, Kate Howe, and Lucy the Reader. And I'm going to put all of their channel links down below. Now, they each have prompts, and when it comes to a theme month on BookTube, I never really follow the prompts word for word, only because I don't have the energy and I don't really feel like I have that type of opportunity to do all of them. So I basically do Victober adjacent books, and I I always hope that's good enough. So here's what I'm going to read for Victober. This is not an exhaustive list. These are the books that I really, I am almost definite that I will read in October for Victober. I will be reading other books during the month. So my first goal is to finish Ramallah by George Eliot. I had to put this aside during COVID recovery because I did not have the brain power to read Ramallah, which is one of Eliot's fairly complex novels. She can be a complex author and writer, and this one is, out of all of her novels so far, I've only got one left to complete. This one is the most complex out of all of them, even when you put in Daniel Deronda and Middlemarch, because it's such a departure for her. It is set in the Italian Renaissance in Florence, so it's totally off trail from her typical English pastoral country life. So this one, I will most likely, when this video goes up, I will have picked it up Tuesday. So I'm gonna get back into Ramallah. And for the read-along, I'm gonna push this out to October. Even though the content is not set in Victorian times, George Eliot is a Victorian author. So I'm gonna count that one. The other one that is, one of the other ones that is George Eliot related is Felix Holt. This one was published, I believe, in 1966, yes. And this is the last novel of hers I need to complete for the George Eliot 2021 read-along. And this is also not set necessarily, it's right before the Victorian age in 1832, talking about the First Reform Act. And whoever has more experience with British history, political history, correct me, but the Second Reform Act was sometime in the 1860s. So Eliot published this in the 60s. During the time of the Second Reform Act, this book has to do with the first one in 1832, in which the voting rights and political voice was given more towards the people and removed primarily from wealthy landowners. And the political system in England was renovated, revamped, ripped apart, exploded. So I'm going to read Felix Holt in Victober. This one is truly a Victorian novel, and I am going to be buddy reading this with Britta Bowler, and I don't remember when this one was published. Yeah, I can't see it on the publication page. I don't remember, and I wish I did. Wait a minute. I'm going to find it. Just pretend like you're listening to the Jeopardy music. 1862, Lady Audley's Secret by Mary Elizabeth Braddon. And Britta Bowler and I, like I said, are going to buddy read this together. This is a book, title character is Lucy Graham. She accepts the hand of Sir Michael Audley. Her fortune and her future look secure. But Lady Audley's past is shrouded in mystery. And to Sir Michael's nephew Robert, she is not all that she seems. This has been called a Victorian sensationalist novel, and I'm really looking forward to reading my first, Mary Elizabeth Braddon. And this last novel is not a Victorian novel. It is a contemporary novel with a Victorian romance theme. And I just thought, I read the first chapter of this book and I'm like, I think I'm going to move this to Victober because it is set in the Victorian time. I believe, yeah, in the 1870s, 1880s. And this is A Rogue of One's Own by Evie Dunmore. I read Bringing Down the Duke, which I loved. It was so fun, and I figured I'm going to continue the series and read this during Victober. The second one in the Extraordinary Women series, talking about a young group of suffragettes in the 1800s. So I thought that would be a lot of fun. And the last Victober book I'm going to get back to, and I am not clear, I don't think I would finish this in October, but that's okay. I'm going to get back to George Eliot, Voice of a Century by Frederick R. Carl. This is a fairly exhaustive biography of her by Carl, who is, from what I understand, a pretty well-known literary biographer. And I had this going on from towards the beginning of the year for the George Eliot read-along, and was really liking it, but it's pretty dense with the information. So I put it aside. I also put it aside because her biographies had a lot of spoilers for the novels, all of which I hadn't read yet. So I put this down and figured once I'm done with the novels, I'm going to pick up the nonfiction. So I'm going to go back to this during Victober. May not finish it. I still have quite a bit to read, but I'm really anxious to pick that back up again. And so that's it for my Mookes and Gripes winners and my Victober TBR. I've got a couple of other buddy reads going on in October, so I'm going to try to keep things light and kind of wade back into my reading life a little more slowly and go from there. Not much else to talk to you about. Not looking forward to going back to work. I could get used to staying home. Not being sick, but I could get used to staying home. Reading, buying books. I always used to think, you know, if I ever landed into a giant amount of money, what would I do if I didn't work full time? And would I go back to school for yet another degree? Would I start a new career in my mid-50s? I don't know, but one thing I've always wanted to do is volunteer to teach literacy to adults. And I've looked into it over the years, and working full-time while, you know, having a family and raising kids, it just was not doable for me. And I've always kind of been sad about that, because that's been one of my life goals, is to be a literacy volunteer. And maybe I have put that role on a pedestal, and maybe I haven't been realistic about it, but all I've ever thought is it would set people up to get through life and give them opportunities that they don't currently have, as well as down the road reading just for the joy of it. So I've always thought about that in the back of my head. So if I ever had the opportunity to not have to go to work every day, I would probably love to look into that, and or take some classes into literacy training. I love learning. I would be a lifelong learner. So that was just my little chit-chatty kind of tangent that I went off, just thinking about not having to work full time. Oh. Not like I'd be eating bonbons in bed every day, like I've been doing for the last week and a half. Nope. That's about it for me for this week. I'll see you again in my Bookish Week video on Saturday. And thanks for watching, and I hope you've had a good week so far. Bye, everybody.